Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're launching our interview series with speakers at the upcoming 56th annual conference. And we have Wade Caves. Hi, Wade.
Hey, Christina.
How are you?
I'm doing beautifully. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually really excited to have this opportunity to interview you. Um, because you've been quite an inspirational figure to me. And I believe to many other people, not just at the Association, but also at international astrological organizations as well. And you're quite popular, as I said. You've been a regular speaker at our conferences. Um, and you've graduated from the Mayor School in 2012 with honors, and then you proceeded to your next step towards your astrological journey at the STA, where you graduated from the Introduction to Horary and the Master's Level program in 2014. And since then, you've literally taken the astrological world by storm. You've been given lectures, doing seminars and classes, and you've been really, really inspirational. I remember my first astrological conference in 2020 during lockdown, and you spoke about the astronomy made accessible to astrologers. And at that time, it was just a lecture. But 2 years after that, you managed to develop it into a whole course, which
Hmm.
I think is so, so beautiful. And you have this talent to really inspire people. I remember exiting your lecture with such enthusiasm and curiosity about the topic. So yeah, it's wonderful to have you here, and you happen to be our first guest in this interview series.
Wonderful.
And you're also giving the Carter Memorial Lecture. How do you feel about that? I think it's a great honor having your name next to the likes of Andre Barbeau, Sue Tompkins, Richard Tarnas, Lynn Bell, Wendy Stacy, to name a few.
Yeah, it feels quite overwhelming actually when I sit down and think about it. Um, First of all, thank you for that very lovely introduction. It's nice to know that people are noticing the work that I'm doing and seeing it put out. And your introduction was very kind. So thank you. The Carter Memorial Lecture, when I got the invitation I didn't process it for about 2 days. I was sure that a wire was crossed somewhere. I feel, the names that you mentioned are icons to me. These are people that I grew up, whose work I greatly revered, emulated, hope to be able to understand what they were talking about one day. You read the material of Andre Barbeau and it's like you just think, wow, this is really informed. I have no idea where it's coming from, but you can get a sense that it's really rigorous. Lynn Bell's been one of my earliest influences, and I don't practice psychological astrology. It's not my wheelhouse, but Lynn's work is stunning, just really dazzling, just listening to the way that she can pull symbols together. And Wendy was my very first astrology teacher. So there's, in the list that you gave, a number of really inspirational figures in my own journey. And I feel a bit in a state of shock to have been invited. But I'm gonna give it my best and share what I'm working on at the moment, which is I think all I can really do.
I'm sure you'll give your best. You actually always give your best, because your talks are characterized by extensive research, and done with such precision. It's just remarkable. Last year, you talked about Hori astrology and specifically about missing people and pets. And
Oh
you also
yes.
had another talk about the dispositors. What are you talking about this time? You've placed this really dreamy and beautiful title, Making Heaven on Earth. Can you elaborate more on your talk?
Yes, absolutely. So I have been working for the last couple of years I think probably since the presidential election in the US in 2016. Can you remember back in that
Yeah.
time when Trump was running against Clinton? And it was at that time some of the most divisive rhetoric that seen. I was, I think, in my mid 20s or late 20s at the time, and I had not really worked on astrology for world application. So whether we're talking about politics or elections or anything that's going on in the world, I hadn't done any work related to that. But the election, it was a very important one in the US. And so I spent time working with that. And then around the same time, there were Brexit negotiation conversations about the referendum and Brexit in the UK. And that was my first dipping my toe into, looking at astrology for broad purpose. And, that was in 2016. It's 2024 now. So I guess it's almost been 10 years that I've been developing some form of, I'm hoping to develop some form of competency in this arena. And it's been the large part of the work that I focus on now outside of my client base, which is horary driven. And I have a lot of electional and natal consultations that I give and teaching, of course. But the work that I do for my own satisfaction and my own joy is very often connected to how astrology is reflected in the movements and behavior of masses and large groups of people. And it's not just political. I'm interested in how this affects arts and culture, how it affects technological development, how it affects, large movements of ideology. So it's a wide range with relation to world astrology, which we might call mundane astrology, but I tend to call it world astrology when and where I can. The purpose of my talk, I'm in the process of developing a course on world astrology to teach others what I've learned along the way, and then hopefully to, continue to open up the door for people who are interested in this subject. But one of the themes that is uh, crucial to discuss and actually a bit of a tangled mess is how do we connect astrological symbolism to places on Earth. There's been so many different ways of doing this. I talk in my talk description about astrological chorography, and I can show you on the screen now. This is what I mean by this. This is coming from Nick Campion's Book of World Horoscopes. So if you study mundane astrology, it's a must-have text. There's no way to get around it. You got to have it. And in the back, there's these visuals that are very helpful for quickly talking about this theme. But you can see that this is a map of the astrological rulerships according to Manilius, who was writing around AD 10. And you can see, for instance, that the Arabian Peninsula is given to Taurus. Judea, we have Aquarius and Aries right around Ethiopia. Egypt, Aries, Scorpio, pulling down Aries, Cancer into the Horn of Africa. When we move into Western Europe, we've got Capricorn. But then, about a century later, century and a half later, we have the work of Ptolemy, and we have entirely different themes being developed, where we can see that the same regions, there's perhaps more nuance, but also maybe more questions. All of this region that was once Capricorn, now it's given to Aries. The Iberian Peninsula, Sagittarius, some elements remain. We still have this Scorpio element in the northern bit of Western Africa, as we had with Manilius, but there's transition and change as we come into the Horn area. The Arabian Peninsula has changed. How Judea is represented now has more, the Scorpio and Leo being represented. So my question really is about how we understand the relationship between the heavens and earth. But what's really beautiful is that as we take a look at how this question was answered by different cultures in different eras, is we find that they have erected monuments to give us hints about what they thought about this. We know, for instance, if we take a look at the pyramids, the main pyramids in Giza, these are lining up with the stars they're in the exact same alignment as the stars on the belt of the constellation Orion. So what does that tell us about the Egyptian process of mapping themselves to the heavens. There are cities, for instance, like the founding of the city of Babylon, which was a major astrological feat, a major political feat, major philosophical feat in that set up the Arabic Golden Era in the 8th, ninth, 10th century. And that was astrologically determined. And it was, based on trying to map the zodiacal circle onto Earth. And should we establish it a little bit further west, a little bit further east? An area was decided because of its, distance from somewhere else. And how that lines up with a certain degree of the zodiac, that degree being, I believe it's 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So how does that kind of thing happen? These are the questions that I find fascinating. And so I'm hoping, in this presentation to give, it's not, this is going to be one session within the mundane course. I'm going to give the highlights reel for the Carter Memorial Lecture. It's going to be full of visuals, exciting questions, an exploration of major monuments around the world and how they reflect the local cultures, interests, and beliefs about their relationship to the skies.
Right. Wow. This sounds really, really interesting. What do you think is the purpose behind this alignment between celestial and terrestrial sphere? Is there some sort of do we as humans seek some sort of spiritual guidance by aligning with celestial sphere, or what are we trying to achieve with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that putting it in that frame is probably a very modern way to look at it. If we're taking a look at when these systems were first developed, having a spiritual relationship with the sky didn't, it felt like spiritual might be taking it too far. It was like it was so innate to be looking to the sky to help navigate agricultural decisions, political decisions, interpersonal decisions. It didn't feel like it does now post-enlightenment that this is a spiritual exploration. It felt like quite a literal manifestation of what's being reflected in the heavens. We have this quote, as above, so below, as below, so above. This is the principle is more or less these monuments, they do not create necessarily the spiritual connection. They reflect an existing spiritual connection. And more than spiritual, they reflect a cultural disposition. They reflect a societal belief system. And I think that is where the juice is.
Okay. Do you find a connection between different monuments around the world?
Yeah, we do, and so I won't talk about that too much now, so there's not
Yeah.
any spoiling of the surprises in the actual lecture. But yes, there are some very surprising, like these cultures are interested in the same star, or these cultures are interested in the same constellation, and they may reflect them a bit differently. We tend to find this when we're looking at places that are on the same latitude, for instance, where the same northern and southern skies are more or less reflected, so you can see things in China, Egypt, and South America that are, maybe not all in the exact same line of latitude, but they have similar view to major constellations and bright stars in our sky. And monuments to them. So yes, there are some similarities, but there's also a good number of differences that are worth exploring too.
Wow, I can't wait to learn about them more. And our final question for you today is, what is your favorite thing about the AA conferences?
Okay. So I love the socializing. The Astrological Association conferences bring people together from all over Europe, all over the world. And it's so nice to be able to get to sit down and spend time with people that, uh, are like-minded and shared interest. I also have enjoyed that the Astrological Association has a very wide array of talks. I felt like when I came into the astrological community in the 2010s, the most advanced conversations about astrology that I had access to in the English language were happening in the UK and at the Astrological Association conferences. A lot of the American conferences, I found we're playing catch up with some of these different themes, and now I think that there's probably a bit more equity around the world about the types of topics that come up. But yeah, I think I found my home early in the UK astrological scene. And so it feels like a, kind of almost like homecoming, when I get to go back to the UK and spend time with folks. And it's really meaningful.
Ah, thank you, Wade. Thank you so much. In fact, the Astrological Association has always considered diverse teams and promoted inclusivity. So if Wade's talk summary interested you as much as it interested me, sign up for the AA conference today. We have amazing early bird offers available until 31st of May, so make use of them. For more information on the conference, please visit the AA's website, section Conference 2024. There will be a link in the description on YouTube and in our Instagram bio. Thank you so much. See you.
Thanks, Christina.